Brighter Life Show is pleased to have Stephen Hawley Martin as our guest. Stephen is a best-selling author of many books, which include The Secret of Life, Is Science in Denial?, How Science Reveals God, Afterlife, A Whole Story, and several more. We will be discussing his most recent book, Let Go Your Ego. Your best self is waiting to emerge. Stephen, welcome. Welcome to the
Well, I'm glad to
show.
be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Yeah. So I did read your most recent book, Letting Go Your Ego, and I found it was like perfect timing, in my world, because I sense that there's sort of an awakening. We've had many, many, many awakenings, but there's sort of a global awakening where people are seeing things differently. They're, is this real? Is this reality? They don't even know what's real. They don't even know all their sensories, what they're hearing. Is that real? And what I really appreciate about your book is that you pull all these different thoughts, whether it's, life after death, our soul, everything is sort of put together, nicely into a book that is very understandable and a great read and also profound at the same time. So,
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that.
my very first question is, what is ego?
Well, I define ego as a construction that has been built up birth that is on the society you were born into, the culture you were born into, your parents and what they were like and what they taught you, what your teachers and other people around you taught you, and what you learned and experienced, and it's all in your unconscious mind, and it really is what causes you to react to things different ways and experience different emotions. Freud said there were really three things: the superego, the ego, and the id. And I'm old enough to remember back in the 1970s when books like I'm Okay, You're Okay came out, and they sort of took Freud's idea of the superego and the ego and the id and translated that into the parent, the adult, and the child. And so probably those three things make up your ego. Your parent is what you think you should do because of what you were taught. Your child is what you want to get to make you feel better, feel good, because that's what children want. That's what everybody wants, is to feel good and gratified. And the adult is the part of you that thinks and makes decisions and uses rational logic. And so I guess what I'm really trying to get people to do is to realize that they have this part of them that may have been programmed in a way that's not helping them. And they may be reacting to things in a way that is not helping them get where they want to go. And so they ought to take the moment, the instant between when something happens, the stimulus, and when they react to it, and stop and let their adult think about, why am I reacting this way? What happened when I was a child that makes me react as I do and feel as I do? And then, make a rational decision about what is really the best way to react to this situation. So that, in a nutshell, is the message.
Well, society now, they'll say, oh, so but he has an inflated ego, or he thinks he's special, or and then there's a lot of books out that sort of let's eliminate our ego, completely, let go completely of your ego, which of course is impossible because, we need our ego. But what I love about your book is you suggest that we have a partnership with our ego.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I do. I don't think you want to get rid of it. I think it is a construction, in my opinion. And therefore, since it's something that was built, you can modify it. You can change, put a window there and remodel your ego so that it's helping you more than getting you in trouble with when you react in a way that's not helpful. So yeah, I look at it as modifying your ego, realizing that you can do it. People think that they're their egos and that the feelings they have are, it's impossible not to have them. Well, that's not true. If you just take that moment to reflect between stimulus and ego, you'll find out that you can really react any way you want to. And that's what you need to decide is, what is the best way for me to react to a situation like this? There you go.
Now, how does our ego relate to, the world that we see? Just the world that we see around us, that, I mean, how real is how real is really the true nature of reality?
Well, that's just it. Your ego is what determines how you view reality. Take someone who feels that they're a victim for whatever reason. Maybe it could be anything, but a lot of people have that kind of victim mentality, and they're always thinking, well, this person's out to get me, or I can't do that because I'm going to be discriminated against or whatever. Well, if that's what you have in your ego and that's what's guiding you, then you're going to see things that really may not exist at all. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
There was a study done by some psychologists where they had people agree to do this, where they had them, they were going to go for a job interview, and they had them have their faces made up so that they had scars and looked deformed. And then right before they went into the interview, the makeup artist came and said, I need to touch this up a little bit. Let me touch this up. Give me just a minute to get it right. And what they did was erase the scars and add things. And so the person went into the interview and they had the job interview. And when they came out, they talked about how they had been discriminated against because of the scars and the way they looked. When in fact, they looked just fine. But they believed that they still had that made up face that they had started with. And so it just shows that, that the interview was perfectly normal, but they were reacting to the interview in a way where they projected what they believed onto
They didn't
that
hire
person.
me because of the scar on my face. They asked me questions that they may not have asked me ordinarily because I have a scar on my face. I probably won't get the job because I have the scar on my face. I'm a victim of the scar on my face. Why do you suppose that is very
Right.
popular these days? Why is everyone taking on a victim mentality?
I think it's turning on the television, and we have so much stuff where people are, they're this whole thing about playing one group against the other group is separating us all. When the truth of the matter is we're all one. We're all one human family. And, skin color or whatever, or where you were born or your religion, you're a human underneath. And I believe, and I think I say this in my book, that really there is only one consciousness that we all come from. And that consciousness is at the core of all of us. And, when people, for example, have a past life review when they have a near-death experience, they experience everything that has ever happened during their life and the effects of their words and actions on other people, and they experience it from the other person's point of view, and they feel the emotion that the other person felt because of what they said or did. And so that really shows that we're all one, and what you do to somebody else, you do to yourself. I think it was Jesus said that, whatever you do to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do to me. And it's true. And people who are enlightened understand that and see that. I understand it intellectually, though, because of all the work I've done with metaphysics over the years and the study I've done, and many, many people I've interviewed that have had near-death experiences or something paranormal happened to them, mystical experiences and so forth. And I've had a mystical experience myself. So I know it's true.
So karma, it makes me think of karma. when you say that their entire life is in front of everything that they've done, the way they may have treated someone, and having to feel what that person actually felt. Um, does karma? So I always have this one question about karma. Is it instant? Can it take years for karma, or can it be lifetimes? Can something that perhaps I did 3 lifetimes ago come back at me now in this current life?
I think it can be both. What comes to mind when you talk about that is I don't know if you know Dr. Weiss, who wrote a book called
Brian Weiss, yes.
Prime Lives, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Yes.
And his example, one of his examples in that book was Catherine. Catherine was a young woman who had phobias and problems that she had come to Weiss to help get over. Weiss is a psychiatrist, and he regressed her. And he didn't know about reincarnation or anything like that. He was just a plain old psychiatrist, materialist. And he said, go back to the time when this problem first occurred. Well, she went back to a lifetime that took place over 3,500 years ago. And he went with it. And long story short is he took her through many lifetimes over a course of a number of sessions. And she had this karma going with this man that she was in a relationship with in this life since 3,500 years ago. and
That is extraordinary.
And finally, she was able to overcome it because of these regressions into the previous lives. So the answer is it can be a long time, or you can get it back tomorrow,
Okay, that absolutely answers my question. What I find interesting about Catherine is that many of her lives over the last, let's say, several hundred years were always a life of servitude. She seemed to be living her same life over and over and over until she got it right.
Right.
And I always found that interesting. The other thing I found interesting is Weiss himself, who did not believe it and had no choice. He had no choice to believe in reincarnation because he was a psychiatrist, and his entire world changed. Also, what I find interesting is that book was out of print because I bought the book in 2008, and I bought it because my husband had passed away, and somebody suggested it, and it was out of print in 2008, and now it is everywhere.
Is it really? Because I read it when it came out in 1988. Okay. And but the thing about karma is, I believe what Edgar Cayce, do you know Edgar Cayce? Edgar Cayce was the sleeping prophet. He was very famous in the 20th century. He was able to go into a trance and answer all kinds of questions, and he helped people mainly with medical issues, but he got into reincarnation and karma and so forth. And what he said was that karma really is a teaching tool. But you're going to have that same situation coming at you that you have to deal with until you get it right. It's like we are the character, Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day, that we are going to keep facing that same situation over and over again. It may be different people, different time, different circumstances, but it's really the same thing until we deal with it the right way, and that's when we release the karma. Otherwise, we'll just keep facing that same thing over and over again.
Although in Groundhog Day, he was able to remember what happened the day before and the day before. Well, exactly. So we don't have that luxury. So there's this thing that I think you referred to as the veil.
Yeah.
And
forgetting, exactly.
So that's the point. So the veil means that when we're in another life that we don't remember, and there absolutely is a reason for that veil. And
the reason for the veil is that before you are born, you plan your life. You usually working with guides or ascended masters or something like that, and you come back to experience that karma and get over it. But if you remembered why you had come, it'd be like cheating on a test. You really wouldn't absorb the message, you wouldn't really overcome it. You just, be like, checking the box because you know what the answer is. You had the cheat sheet. So you have to have that veil of forgetting so that when you experience whatever the situation is that you need to overcome, you really learn and internalize it. I think of, for example, people who always seem to attract someone who abuses them in some way, either psychologically or even physically. And yet they do that one time after another, each person. Well, something's going on there that needs to be fixed. And it's probably that they have a low opinion of themselves, and therefore they attract people that have a low opinion of themselves. And they need to realize that they're a fantastic spiritual being having a temporary physical experience, and that they really are worthy, and they shouldn't have to put up with people like that. They need to move on. So
And that's what I actually really love about your book is that you actually guide people with steps on how to release things that your ego, for whatever reason, maybe even to protect you,
right.
you think it's protecting you, to help you, let go of some of these experiences, or why you're trying to, revisit a relationship that is unhealthy. And so
Exactly.
I really appreciate those steps. So I just am so happy that you were, accepted my invitation. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, please come to my website. It's easy to remember. It's shmartin, SHMARTIN.com. And you can contact me through the contact page. You can also see all the books that I've written and find out about each one. Look up at the top, you'll see on the menu where you can take a look at my books. And I would love to hear from people. And I've even made friends that way. I've got a friend in France who got in touch with me that way. He's actually a Brit living in France. And I even published one of his books because of our friendship, two of them actually. So yeah, and we have corresponded regularly ever since. So yeah, shmartin.com.
Okay. And everyone, I will have it in the description with other, information of how you can contact Stephen. Stephen, thank you so much. And goodbye, everyone. Till next time.